Welcome to the Farm Life Podcast, brought to you by the Kings County Farm Bureau. Our guest today is David Stanfield, local walnut grower, and much more. I'm sure we'll get into that today. David, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you.
Why don't you start by telling our listeners a little bit about yourself?
I've been born and raised here in Hanford, Kings County, my whole life. Grew up here around farming and just the community, and been farming with my father and my brother now for 15 years. Married, have 5 kids. Everybody's pretty amazed by the 5 kids these days, it seems like.
Yeah, that's an anomaly, I think.
Try and stay very active in the community at our church and other, obviously through the farm and on a ag processing board as well. So trying to do a little bit of everything, but to give back, I think that's important, and just blessed with the life we're able to have here in the valley, farming and raising our kids here. It's a good place to be.
And a good life.
Yeah.
So over the last year, I've seen you around a lot, sat in several meetings with you. Yeah. Talked to you quite a bit about water. And that's kind of why we asked you to come in today.
Yeah.
Notably, you were recently appointed to the Kings County Water District.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think I'm still taking it in. You know, I've been wrestling with the decision to do that and went for it and been involved with water. Water's so critical to what we do. And I'm already involved at the Mid-Kings Stakeholder Committee and have been attending pretty actively all these meetings for years. So I think it was just the next step of that process, you know, to try and serve our region and make sure that we extend this and are good stewards of our water, and you know, we need to keep that as long as we can into the future for the next generation, and just for the impact it's going to have on our area.
Yeah, what do you see the value of the Kings County Water District in agriculture and in Kings County?
I mean, it's immensely valuable. We need, you know, the surface water inputs that come into our region are critical for, you know, it's a critical piece of recharge, of allowing some farms to use surface water, utilize it, delivery of that water. So absolutely critical. It affects all of us in one way or another.
Yeah, it certainly does. Anybody that's listened to this show has heard us talk about the Water District and the Mid-Kings River GSA. But why don't you share your thoughts with us on the importance of those two agencies getting along and working together?
I mean, there has to be at a minimum some kind of cooperation. I mean, the Water District obviously has control of the surface deliveries. The GSA is controlling the groundwater side of it. And, you know, those two are in separate silos. It's just not a feasible way to go into the future for any of us. So I really hope that there can be, at a minimum, a cooperation, coordination. It'd be great to see perhaps a return to the table with the district, the GPA. I don't know if that's possible. I mean, I appreciate our supervisors stepping up and filling a hole there when they remove themselves from that agreement. So,
yeah, surface water and groundwater can't be treated as two separate things anymore. They're very much tied together, and got to have both on the table anytime you're talking about water.
Yeah.
So that's good. So you were appointed to the Water District Board rather than elected. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so there was just a notice that they put out that there was a resignation and they're going to be accepting interested parties for nominations. So I kind of filled out a little stock form and wrote a little letter introducing myself and some of my background and my interest. And I think, like you said, we've run into each other. You know, anybody that's gone to some of these meetings the past 3 years, you get a pretty good idea of who's been in those spaces and in the meetings. And so the board, I think, recognized that I've been attending some of these things and involved. And there are some other interested parties that I think were very capable as well. And ultimately, the board chose to nominate me. So,
well, good.
Here I am.
Here you are, for better or worse, right?
Yeah, that's right. Hopefully, people have been calling and, you know, congratulating you. Like, well, let's wait on the congratulations. But.
Yeah. I'm glad to see that there were interest more than just one person in that seat. It shows, I think, how important that Water District seat is. And I know that at Farm Bureau, we're glad that you were appointed. We think you got a good handle on water and the district and Sigma and why they're all important. So
thank you for that. Hope that continues. Let me know if it doesn't.
You'll be the first to know. So what's your term like? I think the previous director vacated in the middle of a term.
Again, I've had one meeting under my belt. My understanding is the term expires next year, so I would be up for election next year. So, if you're listening to this, appreciate some support when that time comes, that it's not just a nomination, but definitely I'll have to run in an election unless I guess I'm unopposed.
Yeah, right. As I looked at the dates and everything, that was my understanding of it too. I found it really interesting in the last election how few voters understood that they were voting for water district representatives.
Yeah.
And paying attention and drawing attention to that has been a really interesting part of what we do around here.
And I think that's going to be an ongoing effort, both for the water district and the GSA. There's a lot of education that needs to continue. I think, your average farmer probably has a pretty good grasp on this by now, but there's a lot of community members that, why do I care about water? How does that impact me? I just live here.
Yeah. People don't realize that it's going to impact everyone and everything that we do here in Kings County and much of California, really.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's kind of alarming sometimes how few people understand SGMA, that it's here, that changes are coming, and that it will impact us.
Yeah, and that was really a driver for me years ago. Getting involved in the meetings this is going to drastically impact our community and communities across the state, particularly our kind of central southern region. These communities are heavily reliant on farming.
Mm-hmm.
I think, is it a quarter of our jobs are just directly tied to farms? And you reduce water at the amounts they're talking, that's going to impact all of us drastically.
All of us, yeah. In Kings County, there's no economic sector that even comes close to backfilling what agriculture does if we don't continue producing and farming here in the county.
Yeah.
So you guys are in the Mid Kings River GSA. Do you farm in any other GSAs?
No, just that GSA. We're kind of northeast, I guess, of Flint and 43, kind of mainly that area, a little bit west of there as well. But we have a few different ranches that we manage and grow walnuts, open crops. We run a walnut dryer and harvesting business as well.
Yeah, you guys are busy.
Always something.
So the Mid Kings River GSA doesn't necessarily have any policies in place that directly impact how you're growing just yet. But are you guys making any changes on farm preparing for those policies that are looming?
Yeah, we've kind of gone through this shuffling of prior policies that came down, but we're not, we're final, but we're, the state was looking at the plan. But we've seen all that and we've been preparing. Obviously we monitor all of our pumping that we do already. We install meters ourselves, and not everyone's chosen to do that, but we use TTN meters currently to kind of check and manage our efficiency and our use, as well as normal testing of efficiencies and water on the farm.
Yeah, so you're kind of getting in that mindset, it sounds like, of
trying to prepare. And those are things that I think many farmers have done or are working towards currently.
Yeah.
You asked about policies. The committee, we've been working extensively on policies. There's, I think, in the upcoming meeting, there's going to be some policy discussion by the board coming out of that committee at the GSA level.
Good.
And the different timelines attached to those, but I think just for the community to be aware that these policies are coming, there is going to be an impact here. Maybe this year, but for sure next year.
Yeah, there'll definitely be some changes. It sounds like for at the very least next irrigation season.
Yeah,
and that's not just the Mid Kings River GSA. South Fork is kind of in a similar
correct
position, and I think the GSAs to the south are all in. They're all kind of everybody's close. It sounds like policies are coming.
Yeah,
they're getting finalized. They're being tweaked right now.
That's my understanding as well.
Yeah, good. Glad it's all glad we're all hearing the same thing, right?
Yeah, hopefully.
So what's your role been on the Mid Kings River GSA Stakeholder Advisory Committee?
So the group, we have a really good group, I think, of stakeholders, farmers that just discuss the impacts to our area, not only how it might impact us, but also the broader area. And it's a complex issue, and it gives me an appreciation for our country, and the fact that, you know, we could have the freedoms we have and the agreement that our founding fathers were able to reach in a room of so many diverse interests. And I mean, it's a process for sure, and it's a struggle, but appreciate that the stakeholder voices are being heard and being a part of that conversation.
Yeah, that was a huge missing piece before, and it's really inspiring to see how different folks from different backgrounds and different practices, different farms come together, you know, and not without some heat sometimes, but come together and discuss how these policies are going to impact each other, and try and come up with a policy that works, generally speaking, for everybody in the room.
Yeah.
It's not easy. That committee's been meeting weekly, I think, last I heard.
Yeah, we've gone weekly, every other week, kind of shifting a little bit depending on schedules. But yeah, it's been a lot. That's been a large portion of the, you know, thinking that I've been doing, research, studying, trying to learn some of the history of our area as far as water use. And I mean, it's a lot to think about. The decisions that we're making in this committee, they're going to have really long-reaching impacts across our region. So
yeah, and you guys should all really be commended. I mean, your meetings are 2 or 3 hours long, but the amount of homework and the amount of background that you guys do outside of those meetings, I can only imagine the hours that you're putting in. And I like to remind people that you're all doing that as volunteers. Nobody's getting paid. You know, you're doing it because you think it's the right thing to do to protect our industry and our community, and it's really commendable.
Yeah, and I mean, going forward, we're going to have, like you alluded to on the timeline, there'll be a time where it's going to go back out to the community for, you know, there'll be a 218 again in the future, and I hope we can do some good outreach and education.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, right? You guys can do so much work, but you got to have the community bought in. Or we've seen it, right? If the community doesn't buy in, it doesn't work. And that's the worst possible outcome.
Well, that's where you've been critical here at the Farm Bureau. We really appreciate your efforts on behalf of farmers, because I mean, the education component, going to bat for all of us at different levels. Appreciate the work you do.
Yeah, thank you. That's nice to hear, but that's what we're here for, right? We at our core, we're all farmers, right? And we want to see this protected and available for the next generation, and see agriculture continue to thrive. So it's a worthwhile fight that we're up for. That's for sure.
Well, hopefully you can support whatever the group comes up with moving forward.
We're trying. It's a good group, and we talk with them frequently. So we think you guys are all in. Not that it matters all that much what we think, but you know, no red flags just yet.
Important to try and do something that we can all work towards.
Yeah, that's the thing. Our goal as the Farm Bureau is to make sure that SGMA is implemented in a way that satisfies the law, but allows the industry to continue to thrive, right? It's a tough industry. This year's tougher than most, it looks like. SGMA's not helping, but we need to protect it and kind of turn that ship around a little bit and get this headed in the right direction.
Absolutely.
And that's all anybody wants to see at the end of the day.
Yeah, and just provide a framework. That's the other part of this, that, you know, operations trying to plan into the future. I mean, how do you do that without you don't know what the cost is going to be, what the limitation going to be placed on your operation as far as groundwater use.
Yeah, and I think that's a pinch point or a fatigue point for a lot of growers. That's a question I get asked all the time, is, you know, what's the water allocation going to be? How much is it going to cost? And when I tell them I don't know, the frustration is, well, you know, how do I plan for this year and next year and 2 years down the road if we don't have these things figured out? And we appreciate the frustration. We understand the fatigue of not knowing answers to those questions. And unfortunately, there's no quick or easy answer.
Yeah, I don't think I have an answer for those questions yet either. But
you'd be a rich man and probably not sitting here if you had those answers right now.
Yeah.
But that's, you know, those are the burning questions, and that's what you guys are working to figure out on the Stakeholder Advisory Committee, and anybody that serves on a committee or a board of directors for a GSA. It's a thankless job with a lot of work, but it's important and necessary right now.
Critical work.
Yeah, critical. That's a perfect word. So what are we missing? What do our listeners need to know about you, your service on the water district, the GSA board or GSA committee?
I think the most important thing is that it's exactly that. It's a service. I'm doing this to give back to the community, and I think just we need to hear. I'm here to learn. I'm still learning a lot. So if community members, farmers, I think I'm in District 2 is my area.
Okay.
So I would love to hear from stakeholders, community members. I think at both levels, whether it's the water district or the GSA, we need to continue to hear feedback. The meetings for the stakeholder committee, people can attend those. So water district meetings are people are able to attend those as well. So I think you could come and give us your feedback, your input, your thoughts. We'd like to hear those at both those levels.
Certainly. I mean, we all learn from talking with each other, right? And you can only make decisions with the information that you have. So if somebody has something different to say, got to step up, got to speak up, let everybody know, so that will be considered in the decision-making process. We will throw a map in the show notes for this episode that shows the water districts and their districts, and show everybody where District 2 is, so they kind of know who your neighbors are.
Yeah, who needs to be angry at me or reach out to me.
And then you guys can find David and don't give him too much help. He's a good guy.
I think even beyond that, for sure, District 2 is the voters that I'm trying to represent. But beyond that, we need to all. It's a broader representation than that as well. So
of course, yeah, that's a small portion of the service area of the water district, and a small and even smaller portion of the groundwater sustainability agency. And it all is tied together.
Correct. We all need each other, especially in agriculture. We have to all support one another, and I think that's probably the part of the future where we could do better. Is ag's been so disjointed typically in the past, and I hope to see us continue to make these efforts on working together to combat a lot of the issues we're facing collectively.
Yeah, that's a great point. We don't talk about that enough. It's starting to come up more often, but we really need to band together as a community and work together as friends and neighbors, and do these things with each other, not in silos or not separate from each other.
Yeah,
nobody's a competitor in the industry. We're all neighbors, and a rising tide raises all ships, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's good. All right, David, is there anything else you want people to know about you?
Not that I can think of.
Okay.
I think we've covered a lot here, and just I appreciate the opportunity to serve, and I guess look forward to when the election time comes, seeing support and trying to do my best to give back to our community.
Well, that's good. We're glad that you're doing what you're doing. We appreciate you stepping up and representing all of us, and we think you're all going to do a great job for us.
I appreciate that. And strive to do my best.
Perfect. For our listeners out there, if you guys are hearing this podcast and liking it, please consider subscribing. It helps us know that people are paying attention, and this is worth the effort. The Sigma Defense fundraising effort is still going on. Our lawsuit against the State Water Board is still tied up in the appeals court and will be for a while. We hope to have a ruling soon, but we don't know when that's coming. And for more information about that or the Farm Bureau, check out our website, kcfb.org. Thanks, David.
You're welcome.